Rock Square Thunder, founded in 2020, is relatively new to the gaming world. Looking at their history, we see that they have released only one game, The Lightbringer, which takes players on a beautiful journey full of puzzles and platforming challenges. When I looked at the visuals of The Lightbringer, I could easily tell that the developers are truly talented and have great potential. By 2026, Rock Square Thunder was working with the publisher Feardemic on a survival horror game centered around stealth and sound titled I Hate This Place. When I first watched the trailer for I Hate This Place, it immediately caught my attention. The art style looked really nice, it had an interesting isometric layout, and it belonged to one of my favorite genres, survival horror. I definitely wanted to see what it was like, and after playing through its roughly 9-hour story, I formed my thoughts. I Hate This Place combines supernatural and sci-fi elements, focusing primarily on stealth and crafting mechanics. In recent years, the survival horror genre has become quite popular, but there haven't been many games made in an isometric style. For this reason, I Hate This Place earns extra points for daring to be different. However, while the core ideas of the gameplay mechanics are quite interesting, their execution falls short, and in many ways, the game fails to fully realize its potential. It's not a bad game, but in terms of gameplay, you can't help but feel that it could have been so much more.
Clunkiness, stealth, and crafting.
Right from the start, you'll notice just how clunky the controls in I Hate This Place are. I played it on PlayStation 5, and it's clear that the controls were primarily designed for PC players, with consoles taking a back seat. To aim your weapon, you push the R3 analog stick forward, which brings up the crosshair. Then you move the crosshair to lock onto a target. It feels quite awkward, and I couldn't help but think that the crosshair should always be visible and automatically lock onto enemies. It's as if the system was designed entirely with a PC mouse user in mind. This strange aiming and shooting method, combined with other confusing control choices, like using L2 for running, eating, and healing all at once, and crouching with both circle and L3, makes the controls feel uncomfortable. The worst part is that the game doesn't offer any option to remap buttons, meaning you're stuck with these controls throughout the game. Even if you eventually get used to them, they still feel different compared to other games in the genre, which can be unnecessarily frustrating. Once you start to get the hang of the controls, the gameplay dynamics of I Hate This Place begin to click. The game is built around evading massive enemies, finding keys or solving puzzles, and fighting with the scarce ammunition you have. Because bullets are such a precious resource, opting to save them for last is a smart strategy. Some of these monsters are terrifying up close, and sneaking past them, throwing boxes to distract them, and then fleeing when caught creates incredibly tense and unforgettable moments. When I was near a massive creature and accidentally made a sound, I could feel my heartbeat racing. This mechanic adds a great layer to the typical stealth gameplay. When players aren't sneaking past terrifying monsters, they spend much of their time building a main base. This involves gathering enough resources to construct structures such as a garden for growing vegetables, a stove for cooking, and a workshop for crafting weapons and ammunition. You can rearrange structures in your base to optimize the layout, which is useful for efficiency and production. While exploring the world of I Hate This Place, players can also find blueprints that unlock additional crafting items at their base, which expands weapon options and increases their chances of survival. For me, discovering these blueprints was one of the most enjoyable parts of the game. When not hiding from horrifying creatures, players spend most of their time constructing a central base. These are the core elements of the gameplay experience in I Hate This Place. It doesn't get much more complex than this, and looking at the game as a whole, it feels quite simple and straightforward. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't think players should expect a deeply immersive or profoundly impactful survival horror adventure. There are moments of intense combat and cinematic sequences, but overall it feels like a game that progresses in a routine manner, completing tasks rather than delivering consistently gripping experiences.
Evil lurks in the dark. The survival loop in I Hate This Place involves returning to your base, the ranch, after completing various tasks. While exploring outside, players encounter different enemies, points of interest, characters who provide important information, and notes that advance the story. Exploration feels fairly mundane, and I didn't come across anything particularly striking or feel motivated to investigate further. As I mentioned earlier, the ranch serves as a safe area and your home base. Being away from the ranch is dangerous, but the game's day-night cycle allows you to plan when to explore. Heading out during the day is much safer since it's easier to spot your surroundings and enemies, but certain main quests force you to venture out at night. Aside from these quests, I didn't find any real incentive to leave the base in the dark. This is disappointing because the day-night cycle could have been better utilized, perhaps by offering materials or upgrades that only appear at night. Instead, leaving the ranch after dark often just puts you in a tougher situation without any reward. Because there's no tangible benefit to nighttime exploration, I found myself constantly going to bed to skip ahead to morning. Since sleeping has no significant consequences, aside from hunger, players can easily take advantage of this mechanic. For this reason, the day-night cycle feels largely unnecessary.
Scavenging to survive.
As mentioned earlier, players need to manage their hunger while exploring the world of I Hate This Place. Every action, walking, running, swinging your weapon, reduces your hunger bar. Therefore, keeping food in your inventory, such as potato chips or vegetables, is crucial to refill it. Otherwise, your stamina drops significantly. Abundant. Personally, I think it should be the opposite. More ammunition, less food. The hunger bar is a nice feature, but if it's almost never in danger of depleting, it ends up feeling more like a nuisance. For instance, I once left the ranch with 10 servings of soup, and each completely refilled my hunger bar. Beyond hunger, your biggest challenge will be finding ammo, or at least the materials needed to craft it. I feel the developers were quite harsh in this regard, especially early in the game, as I struggled to find the components necessary to make bullets for my pistols. I understand the need for scarcity in these types of games, but there's a fine line, and unfortunately, I Hate This Place seems to cross it when it comes to ammunition. On the other hand, there's plenty of healing items, throwable objects, and of course food. Due to the lack of bullets, I died frequently and had to stray from the main path to find the necessary resources. In games like this, wandering off isn't inherently bad, but I often felt stuck, aimlessly running around like a headless chicken without finding any ammo or materials. This extended my playtime by a few hours and made the game feel longer than it actually is. Maybe this reflects my skill level, but I consider myself fairly competent in survival horror games. Final thoughts. I Hate This Place has some positive elements, a unique setting, an interesting isometric layout, and a focus on crafting at its core. However, it doesn't fully reach its potential, and many of its systems aren't particularly impressive, which makes for a generally underwhelming experience. Resource management is problematic, the day-night cycle feels unnecessary, and the controls on consoles are so frustrating that they cause headaches rather than enjoyment. There are some great moments involving stealth gameplay and supernatural environments, where the excitement of survival horror shines through. But these moments are fleeting. If there's no alternative and your budget is limited, I'd recommend I Hate This Place to survival horror fans, but don't expect major innovation from it.